A very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on a Wednesday morning. We're halfway through yet another transfer window, and there's still not awful lot of action, is there? Apart from the three players that we signed at the beginning of the transfer window, and of course we've got a fourth new face if you want to include Andy Irving. Nothing else has materialised, and there's a huge amount of frustration amongst West Ham fans as to why we haven't got our business done early as we said we wanted to. We've heard the same rhetoric before. Get the business done early. It was always a Moyes mantra, and now it's under a Lopetegui and Steidem mantra. Get the business done early. But we've got a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks to go before the first game of the season against Aston Villa, and I guess we've got the whole of August to go before the transfer window shuts down. But we do know we need minimum another three players and at least another five if we really want to have a really decent squad to compete next season. Look, if you're new to the channel, please do hit that like button. It helps with the algorithms, etc. It gets the channel noticed. And as I keep repeating myself, and I do apologize for doing that, please do become a subscriber of the channel. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear, all my content is free. It's free to subscribe as well. So please do become a subscriber. So, what am I going to focus on? Well, I can't really quite get my head around the latest transfer rumor that we're linked to German international Niclas Fullkrug. So, why are we? And what exactly is the plan? Because one minute we're being linked to a 20-year-old Jhon Duran, and the next minute we're being linked to a 31-year-old seasoned international in Fullkrug. So, what on earth is going on? It makes it really difficult. I can understand why fans are getting really frustrated because as much as I don't want to use the word scattergun, it does feel as if it is. There seems to be no rhyme or reason, no sort of context to why one minute we're trying to get one player on one side of the spectrum, and then the next minute we're looking for a player on the other side of the spectrum. It doesn't quite make a lot of sense. When I look at some of the players that we're linked to, strikers, for example, they're all quite different strikers, and I'm going to talk about Fullkrug and his the way he plays the game, which is completely different to someone like Jhon Duran. I kind of get some of the midfielders that we've been linked to. There's a consistency there with central midfielders, holding midfielders, that kind of midfielder, like Yusuf Fofana and players like that. But when it comes to strikers, it's all getting rather confusing. So, I'm going to give you an update on him. Obviously, going to give you a brief update on Jhon Duran and also an update on Wan-Bissaka, plus one or two other players that we've been linked to over the past couple of days. So let's start with Fullkrug. He developed through the youth ranks at Werder Bremen whilst Tim Steidem was there at the club. He's had a bit of an interesting career, a bit of a not quite the sort of career that you would expect for a player that we should be going for. But let's deal with it. Steidem knows the player well because at the time that Fullkrug was making his way from the youth rank levels into the senior team, Steidem was head of youth scouting at the club at Werder Bremen. He made his debut for Bremen in the senior team in 2012 and then went on loan to a second-tier club, Greuther Fürth, in 2013. On his return from that one-season loan spell in 2014, he was sold to FC Nuremberg for around 300,000 euros. Nuremberg also in Bundesliga 2. He was there for 2 seasons at the club where he made 59 appearances, scoring 18 goals with 11 assists. That averages out at about 1 goal per every 3 games or so. In 2016, that prompted Hanover to part with 2.2 million euros to sign him. But it meant that the player was kind of finally back playing in the top tier football, German football, rather than second tier. He spent 3 seasons there, making 80 appearances, 24 goals, 8 assists. Again, the average, not much better than the previous, about 1 goal in every 3 games. And then in 2019, he went back home, so to speak, to Werder Bremen, who brought him back to the club for 6.5 million euros. But he didn't rejoin Steiden at the time because as he was coming through the door, Steiden was leaving to become scout at Leverkusen. Now, at Werder Bremen, he made 124 appearances in total for the club, scoring 49 goals, 16 assists. Half decent. That's an average ratio of about two goal per every 2.5 games. That prompted, with his goals at the club, that prompted Borussia Dortmund to invest 17 million euros on the player. I mean, at that year, Dortmund got a big bonus, didn't they? They sold Jude Bellingham for 103 million euros, and part of that reinvestment into the squad was to get Fullkrug into the team. Now, according to the club's standards, they didn't really have that much of a successful season, the 23-24 season. They still finished fifth in the Bundesliga, and they also reached the Champions League final, ironically, against Jude Bellingham's Real Madrid, which they lost 2-0. But the player took part in the Champions League. The player himself, I don't think he did, he didn't do that well. Sorry, he did do well, I should say, scoring 16 goals, 10 assists in 46 appearances. That's pretty decent. 3 of the goals that he scored last season were in the Champions League, with another one coming in the German Cup. So that meant he scored 12 goals in the Bundesliga. And of his 10 assists, 8 of those were in the Bundesliga as well. Now, as I mentioned, he's also a German international, and he was called into the national team quite late in his career. He made his debut at the age of 29 in a friendly against Oman in November 2022 when he scored on his debut. He's made 21 appearances so far for the German national team, scoring 13 goals, pretty good ratio. And of course, we all saw him perform in Euro 2024. He only started one of Germany's games in those games, but made an appearance in every other game that he was in, that Germany were involved in, and he scored 2 goals in the Euros 2024, the one against Scotland and one against Switzerland. So far, okay. What it is that it makes me think that surely that's pretty good, doesn't it? Isn't it? Maybe he is a realistic target. But I guess it's just, maybe I shouldn't be like this, but I guess it's just the player's age that is sort of sticking in my mind. Especially when we've got players, Danny Ings, 32 years of age, Antonio, 34 years of age. There are 2 strikers at the moment. So bringing a 31-year-old in, kind of, to me, all right, he's younger than the 2 strikers that we currently got, but it kind of just doesn't make sense. And because, as I've said, we've been linked to 20-year-old Duran throughout the whole of this summer transfer window, we kind of geared ourselves up for a young, dynamic striker to come into the squad, playing alongside the likes of Kudus and Bowen and all those sorts of players. And then kind of them being linked to a 31-year-old striker just doesn't sound quite as exciting. Now, look, the thing is, if he fills a gap that we are in desperate need of, if he improves our front line for a price of around 15 million euros, then perhaps this could be a smart move for a couple of seasons. But then we have to look at our other strikers. Like I said, we've got Danny Ings, injury prone, 32 years of age. Antonio, 34 years of age, injury prone. If I guess if Lopetegui mixes all 3 of these strikers, using them sparingly in games, then maybe you can get by. But I just don't know. So I'm missing something here, aren't I? I looked at his injury record, and the last serious injury he sustained was way back in 2020-2021 season. Whilst at Werder Bremen, he missed 12 games due to a calf injury. He's had minor knocks since then, but he's quite a fit 31-year-old. But you look at his previous record of injuries, he's had a few serious injuries throughout his career. Cartilage damage back in 2013 kept him out for almost a whole season. Cartilage damage in 2015 kept him out for 18 games. Again, cartilage damage in 2018, which kept him out for 19 games. which was swiftly followed up by a cruciate ligament tear in the 2019-2020 season, which again made him miss virtually a whole season. All right, these are injuries from the past, but as you get older, sometimes these injuries come back to bite you. You've only got to look at Antonio, Kurt Zuma, etc., with their injuries that keep recurring and recurring. So, therefore, I can only think that it must be his playing style that must be attracting Tim Steidten to want to go and sign this player if the rumour is true. Apparently, two internal sources at West Ham have suggested that we have made inquiries about the player, and apparently that there's a bid imminent. So, what about his playing style? Well, first of all, he's a traditional number nine. He embodies the classic role of a centre forward, reminiscent of a true number nine of the past, a Shearer kind of player. Now, unlike modern strikers who often like to drift out wide or drop deep, he thrives on playing his game in the penalty area, using his physicality and positioning to create scoring opportunities, not only for himself, but for his side as well. He's got good positioning, good movement. He excels. He's excellent at positional awareness. He reads the game really well, making intelligent runs to find spaces in the box. His movement off the ball allows him to create goal scoring opportunities. He's a clinical finisher. His ability to finish chances is exceptional. And whether it's a powerful shot or a delicate touch or a chip, etc., Fullkrug is clinical in front of goal. He can score with both his feet as well as his head. And he has aerial dominance, 6'2" tall. He's a threat in the air. He times his jumps really well and can score headers from crosses and set pieces. And he's good at hold up play. He excels at holding the ball up, bringing teammates into play. His physical presence, he uses that really well, allowing him to shield the ball from defenders and link up play in the final third of the pitch. And he's got an excellent work rate. He's a hard-working player who presses opponents, tracks back, contributes defensively. His work rate benefits the team both offensively and defensively. So look, I won't lie. Will it be a thrill to sign a 31-year-old striker who already earns around 100 grand a week? No, not really. But at 15 million euros, it could be considered a relatively low risk, which could reap great reward. And more importantly, it won't use up too much of the transfer budget, however much it is, that we've still got, which we can then use to strengthen in other areas. And I'm thinking that if we do sign Fullkrug, we might be ready to pay a big fee for a left-sided attacking player. It's the only logic. Like, okay, a good team player, but maybe the logic is that we're not going to spend big money on a striker and maybe go and spend big money on a left-sided attacking player. Right, let me give you some updates on some other attacking players for now. Jhon Duran, as I've said, latest update is that he's rejected a move to Saudi club Al Hilal, who approached Aston Villa for the potential signing of the player after a deal for Barcelona player Vitor Roque fell through. It seems Duran only wants to move to West Ham, and with the ongoing stalemate of the two clubs unable to agree a fee, could the player start taking things into his own hands? Now, I know last week there was a suggestion he might go on strike, but I wonder if he might do the old-fashioned thing and put in a transfer request. I wonder if that would work. It looks as if, quite possibly, there are a few signs. It looks as if, quite possibly, Aston Villa might finally be ready to move for a potential replacement by targeting, apparently, Crystal Palace player Jean-Philippe Mateta. That'll cost them around, what, £25 million? And of course, there was a story last week, or there was a picture last week of new signing Amadou Onana, who was wearing Duran's squad number in training. I think we simply have to bide our time on this one. I still do think he's our prime target. I still do think we're gonna sign him. I really do. Now, if for argument's sake, if we sign him as well as Fullkrug, what does that mean? Could it mean that perhaps eventually we might see the departure of Danny Ings or even Antonio. Look, Ings was given an opportunity to move from the club only recently, but he turned that down. When Southampton looked to sign the player, we apparently even offered to, or we agreed to actually pay part of his salary in order for him to move, but he didn't want that. Maybe, just maybe, it's Fullkrug and Duran in order to allow maybe even Antonio to leave. We've heard quite a few times over the past few years that Antonio wanted one big last payoff, and maybe, just maybe, Fullkrug is coming in to replace Antonio rather than playing alongside him. And then we still have Duran coming in as well. Am I dreaming? I don't know. That would be even more logical. If it's both Duran and Fullkrug coming in because one of our current strikers is leaving, I could see that happening. Right. What about some other players? Well, I'm going to be very brief on this one because last summer we were linked to Eli Wahi, who was then playing for Montpellier. In the end, he moved last summer to Lens in a £25 million deal. And it's rumoured that they're looking to cash in after just one season on the player. But he won't come cheap. The 21-year-old did not reach the goal-scoring heights during his time at Montpellier. He's still notched up, however, at Lens, a creditable 12 goals with 4 assists in the first season at his new club. Now, although he's regarded as centre forward, he is adaptable. He can play across the front line. He's represented France up to under 23 level, and he does have 4 years left on the Lens deal. So they'll be looking, I would imagine, for a fee of something like 35 million euros, if not more, to let the player go. There's another player that we've been linked to recently, which is, I'm not going to pronounce his name correctly, but I'll give it a shot. Juventus striker, Arkadiusz Milic. The 30-year-old striker has scored just 17 goals in 70 appearances for the Italian club. And with 2 years left on his contract, it's suggested that Juventus want to move him on in order to bring in a new player. I don't know. I think this one's agent talk, to be quite honest with you, and I don't hold much into that particular transfer story. But another one that's come up for a player that we were linked to last season was we're rekindling our interest in Corinthian striker Yuri Alberto, who was rumoured to have been close to signing with us last summer. The 23-year-old player is a live wire. He's a decent player, described as a proper team player. He made a big money move to Russian side Zenit St. Petersburg for a fee of 25 million euros back in 2022. But with the Ukraine-Russian war, he took advantage of returning to Brazil to play for Corinthians on loan, where they eventually signed him on a free transfer. He's a decent player, a versatile player, another one who can play across the front line. And we could quite possibly get him for a fee as low as 20 million euros, which might tempt Corinthians to part ways with him. Let's see. That's an interesting one, and I would keep an eye out for that one. Now, let's move on to other targets because, of course, the next player that we're rumoured to be close to completing a deal on is Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Again, I've got to own up. When this rumor first came about, I said, no way, we're going for Kyle Walker-Peters. And I didn't think that we'd be even not remotely interested in Wan-Bissaka, but I thought he was a distant second to a Kyle Walker-Peters signing. But from what we understand, this is beginning to sound a little like the Harry Maguire saga that we went through last summer when we tried to sign him. Man United want to sell and they want to bring in their targeted right back, Noussair Mazraoui. And it looks as if Man United are willing to do a cheap deal for circa 10, 15 million pounds on the 26-year-old right back who's got a year left on his contract. Now, apparently the player at first didn't want to leave Man United. He was prepared to leave on a free next summer. And leaving on a free means that you get a really good signing on fee. And of course, your agent does well as well in getting a fee for getting the player to you. However, Wan-Bissaka seems to have had a change of mind and is apparently now interested in moving to West Ham. However, and this is the Maguire bit, he wants a severance package. And this is my understanding of what's holding the deal up. Now, as Wan-Bissaka will be missing out on a big signing on fee next summer, he wants it to be worth his while to move this summer. So not only that, his agent's also going to want some money as well. So this might scupper the deal. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see, because what we're trying to do now is negotiate. We're trying to negotiate more than nearer the £10 million mark rather than the £15 million. Because if we do end up having to pay anything towards his severance package or his agent's fees, etc., that could be 5 million, if not more. So if that starts going up, I just wonder if we might end up saying, forget this and look elsewhere. I don't know. Let's wait and see. But my understanding is we're quite close to an agreement. Let's hope we get this one across the line. I said this the other day, didn't I? If we can at least get this one across the line, it will just ease the nerves a little bit, and then we can move on to the next target. I'll be really honest. I'm still a bit mystified that we didn't cut a deal for Carl Walker-Peters, but I'm told by many that Wan-Bissaka is the better right back, and I'll take your word for that. So let's see again if this pans out over the next few days. There's one or two more that I'm going to quickly mention as well. First of all, there's Mark Pubil of relegated Spanish side Almeria. This 21-year-old is currently with the Spanish Olympic team. He moved to Almeria last summer from Levante for a fee of €5 million. And he'll probably, if he is available, and if he is a sort of player that we're after, will come at a similar sort of price. Despite the fact that he's got 5 years remaining on his contract. Look, he's got decent physical strength as a defender, good aerial ability as well. He can also play not only as a right back, but as a right wing back as well. But the problem is he lacks a bit of pace, and his ball control still needs to be developed, and his decision making isn't the best when he's under pressure. Doesn't quite sound like the sort of player that we'd really be that interested in. And finally, one more player to mention is centre back Torunariga, yet another player that we were linked to last summer from Belgian club Ghent. Now, apparently, Crystal Palace are also interested in this left-footed player, but again, I'm not so certain how much mileage there is in this particular story as well. When you look at his attributes, decent. Is he Premier League standard? I'm not too sure, to be quite honest with you. And given that he's left-footed, we'd probably be better off keeping a Gerd rather than going for Torunariga. That's it. That's the latest roundup. It's all a little bit frustrating, I know. Be patient. I'm trying to be patient. I mean, I laugh at things sometimes, but sometimes, you sort of look at things and you do get a little bit wound up. And I do try and get as much information as I can, as to where we're at with certain signings and whether there's any element of truth. Now, I was told that the Fullkrug rumor is, there is an element of truth. We've made an inquiry. There's a big, big difference between making an inquiry and actually bidding for the player. We may have made an inquiry and that's been it. Who knows? But let's see what happens with him. Let's see what happens with Wan-Bissaka. Let's see what happens with Jhon Duran and various others. Thank you all for watching. Really much appreciated. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, please do hit the like button. If you've yet to become a subscriber, please do subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back very soon with another update.